Hello and welcome to Shoot the Hostage. I'm Sarah.
And I'm Dan.
We're a movie show that delves into a different film each week based around a theme. This season, the theme is cops. Like all good podcasts, this show contains explicit language and mature content, as well as major spoilers for the movie that we're covering.
Okay, so for all the slickers listening today,
Oh no.
we're covering Thunder Road, not the song.
We're not covering the song, no.
No, we're covering the movie Thunder Road, which came out in 2018
Yep.
in the US.
Mhm.
I believe it was 2019 in the UK.
Okay. Did it have a cinema release?
I believe so.
Oh,
I
okay.
believe, or maybe like a limited release.
Yeah.
Pretty sure there was a Prince Charles event.
Oh,
maybe.
of course, yeah. Good
Yeah.
old Prince Charles. The cinema,
Prince-
not the person.
Yeah.
We don't
No.
we don't like the person very much.
I prefer Prince Albert.
Thought you were going to say Prince Andrew for a second.
From the one
I was
that's
gonna say,
not a nonce.
Yeah, we might have issues if that had been the case.
Oh my God, we're here to talk about a movie. We're already talking about the royal family. Yeah, so we're talking about the fantastic, give my thoughts away a little bit early on there, but I'm not going to dance around it. I love this movie, The
Yeah.
Fantastic Thunder Road. Written, directed, edited, composed by,
Starring.
starring, of course, Jim Cummings.
What a show off.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, so 2018 is the release date on, I was going to say LinkedIn. That's a different thing. Letterboxd. Yeah, so, and when I say Jim Cummings, I'm not talking about the voice guy.
Not the prolific voice actor,
Yeah,
no.
I had no idea that this other Jim Cummings existed because I went on
Okay.
Google and typed in Jim Cummings and all I
Yeah.
got was Winnie the Pooh. And
Yeah,
I was like, who's
same.
this guy? Count Duckula or
That was
something.
the first result as well.
Yeah, I know.
We need to correct that somehow.
It's a nightmare when you're looking for podcasts to listen to as well because it's a lot of it is the voice guy.
Oh no.
Yeah, so do we need to do a synopsis?
Sure.
Let's do
We
one
normally
then.
do a synopsis.
Yeah.
We do have an issue this week though.
What's the issue?
The issue is the only copy of the film that I could find anywhere was a French DVD.
Yeah.
And normally we rely on the back of the DVDs and the Blu-rays for the synopsis. But at the risk of being borderline xenophobic, maybe we don't do that this time? Or...
L'engagement de Jim
Okay.
Cummings dans son projet est considérable. Réalisateur, acteur principal, scénariste, compositeur.
This is terrible.
Le genre
Please
arti-
stop.
Okay. you find one that we can read.
Yeah, at the risk of alienating and offending
Our French
our
audience.
our potential French audience.
Yeah.
Let's stop there,
It's
shall
probably
we?
a good idea.
The synopsis on Letterboxd is very succinct, which I appreciate. It's simply a police officer faces a personal meltdown following a divorce and the death of his mother.
Yeah.
And that's brilliant. That's it in a nutshell.
Yeah. Divorce,
Yep.
dead mum.
Yep.
This movie is hilarious. It's one of the funniest films I think I've seen in a long, long time.
Really?
Yeah, and it just
Okay.
gets funnier. The more I watch it as well.
Mm.
Often with comedies, you watch it once, you watch it twice, you kind of got the jokes and you know where they're coming, and it doesn't. It kind of stops being funny to me.
Yeah.
There are a few comedy films that I can watch over and over, but there are so many jokes in this with the performances and the characters. And all the physical performances, and it's just so layered. There's just so many jokes going on, and it's so subtle, and you've got to pay close attention. So I notice something different every time.
I think another reason that it's as effectively funny as it is that there are almost constant tonal shifts.
Yeah,
So it's quite disarming. And then when the jokes, I mean, I wouldn't even call them jokes. It's more sort of Jim Cummings' delivery more than anything
yeah,
that makes the lines funny.
yeah,
But when they do happen, it's disarming, as I say. So it makes you laugh kind of for several reasons. Firstly, because it's funny, and secondly, because it's so unexpected a lot of the time.
it is unexpected, and this is kind of it's a tragedy. The things that happen in this movie are tragic.
Oh, 100%, yeah.
So to go from, as you say, from 1 minute you're kind of really upset at the things that you're seeing and
Mhm.
you're empathising with the characters, and the next minute you're laughing your ass off. It's just done so well. So I guess we should start up top, shall we? Because if we start with the opening scene...
We have to start with the opening scene,
Yeah.
don't we? Because obviously it was a short film first.
Correct, yeah.
I saw this before I saw the short film.
Yeah.
Was it the same way around for you? Because you introduced me to this. I'd never seen it.
I think so. I think I saw the feature first.
Yeah.
I certainly wasn't aware of the short film when it was released in 2016. But it was, so Jim shot for one day on a Saturday. He booked it like 3 months in advance. Like, shit, I've got to write something. He'd written this thing. And he did 6 complete takes, because it's all one take, the short.
Yeah.
12-minute long take.
Yeah, that's fucking impressive.
Yeah.
Straight out of the gate, like...
Yeah, it's insane. But it's the amount of preparation that he puts into it. He just basically knows it off by heart, and all of the comedy beats are exactly the same. The little looks to people and like an eyebrow raise. It's all kind of... He calls it forensic comedy.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah, it's good. But so 12 minutes short. And it's him dancing at his mother's funeral because he's trying to explain that he bonded earlier on in his life with his mum over the song Thunder Road. And he's explaining the lyrics to people, and it's really funny. He's trying to put on a tape, and then he does a little dance. Halfway through the dance, he realises that he should have just put it on his phone. It's just jokes galore. But so that's the short film. But the short film actually became the first 12 minutes of the feature. Yeah. He had success with the short film. He took it to Sundance. He won Sundance, South by Southwest, and he decided to develop the feature. He only spent $190,000 making the feature film, which is insanely low.
That's incredible.
It was part Kickstarter.
Okay.
He raised $36,000 on Kickstarter. He put some money in, he put in his savings, his producer put in some of their savings, and then a bunch of people got in touch and said, can I buy a share, a piece of the film, basically. So a bunch of people put in $12,000 each, and they all got like 1% or something. So they're going to continue to make money from this movie. And I think last podcast I heard Jim Cummings on, which was recorded maybe earlier in 2023 or late 2022, I think it's made about $1 million now. So from 200 grand to $1 million, it's not too shabby.
Not at all.
Yeah, it's not too shabby. So huge success with the short. Decided to go on and make the feature, and as we said, basically slots the short film into the start of the feature, and then it kind of develops from there, and you get to know more about the character outside of the first 12-minute long take.
I love that, and I love some of the techniques that were kind of utilized as well. I'm a huge fan of the 70s. Like, that's my favorite decade for many reasons, but particularly cinema. I'm a big fan of a lot of the techniques that were utilized and popularized in the 70s, and just that, like, I get chills. I really dug that very, very slow, intense zoom. I love that. But that's quite retro, isn't it?
Is it?
I think so.
I would have to rely on you for that. I don't know. I noticed it in the movie, but I've watched it a few times now, and you're right. They do the very, very slow zoom, and they do that with a couple of his monologues. And I like the way in that first scene as well. When he's kind of explaining the song and he's doing some hand movements, the camera follows his hand, and it goes and focuses on Roz, his ex-wife, and she's kind of looking dumbfounded back at everyone, like, I don't know what's going on. I don't know, it's losing it. And then it goes back to Jim, and he's kind of mid dance throwing his arms around. But some of the camera work in this is really, really nice. It's
very fluid. Not to sound wanky or anything, but it's very sort of, I don't know, it's interesting to me, and I don't know if it was intentional, but obviously some of this film does come back to dance. There's the dance at the start. He talks about how his mum owned a dance school, was a dancer herself. He has to sell the dance school, obviously culminates in the ballet at the very end. And so it's almost like the film itself via the camera is sort of a bit of a dance.
Oh, wow, that's really wanky. I never thought
Isn't
of that.
it pretentious? I'm so sorry.
No, but I like it, though. I like it.
But like you said, like the camera sort of moving and following him, and like the slow zooms and stuff, it is very fluid. It's very sort of purposeful.
Yeah, it is purposeful, but it feels organic. And I think that's
Yeah.
the thing about this film, is that it was all planned within an inch of its life.
Yeah.
And I guess must have been very, labour intensive, but it feels organic and it feels natural.
Mm-hmm.
The performances, the movement of the camera, everything, it feels like it's almost improv, but it's not. It couldn't be further away from improv, and that's to its credit. I think that's just brilliant.
Yeah, it's I agree. It is very naturalistic. I wouldn't put it in the category of like mumblecore or anything like that, but it is kind of in the same vein of like that naturalistic kind of performances and dialogue.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So we learn more about the character. He's a cop. He's he's going through a divorce. He's just lost his mother. During the course of the film, he starts to have a legal battle with his ex-wife over custody.
Loses custody. Yeah.
Yeah. But earlier on in the movie, you get to know more about the character. You see him spend time with his daughter. I think one of my favourite scenes is when he's picking up Crystal, and Roz comes out and he bibs her on, makes her jump, and then clearly that there's no love lost between those two. And he kind of says to her, Roz, there's some construction work going on up the road. But the signs are very small, so just keep an eye out. I'd hate to see you and Chris get hit by a fucking train. And that just makes me die every time. I've watched this quite a few times now at this point, and it just makes me die every time. I love it. And later on, he apologises for that off-colour comment. But he's just full of rage. He's very angry, and he's very, oh God, he's so petty. His character is just so funny to me. Everything that he does, he's subtle. When they come upon a guy in a parking lot who's going a bit mad, and he just kind of leans on his, I don't even know what it is, like a cop holster belt thing. Yeah. He's leaning on it and kind of looking out, and he's calling him hombre, and he's trying to be cool. And yeah, it's just very funny. It's that kind of David Brent kind of, I think that I'm pretty cool, but actually I'm a bit of an idiot.
Yeah, he's definitely got that sort of, I don't know, Midwestern Bible Belt average dad vibe, kind of amplified by his wardrobe as well, because the glasses on the chain just killed me.
That's one
little
of the
touches like that.
One of the few scenes where he's not wearing his police uniform, because he wears it to the court, which I guess is a good move, right? He wears it to other things that I forgot. But no, he wears it quite a lot. So to see him out of uniform was quite interesting.
Yeah. Without getting too far ahead of ourselves, I want to go back to the intro again.
Okay.
The 12 minutes. Because there's quite a few lines in there that are so... I don't know, there's a couple where I almost felt very uncomfortable laughing. I did laugh, but it made me feel uneasy. Lines like the diatribe when he's talking about how his mum helped the Down syndrome girl at school, but not knowing, like she had something, I think is what he says. But it's such a pitch perfect way of introducing the character.
Yeah.
Just with a handful of lines. Like he means well, but he's a fucking idiot.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's after he says something as well, it's his facial expression where he just does a little subtle shake of the head.
Yeah.
Just like, why am I saying
instant regret.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's perfect.
We've all been there. And yeah, lines like when he's describing his mum who's just passed away, he's trying to honour his mum, and he talks about how, I think the line is, she was a certified public accountant.
Yeah.
I'm just like, oh, bless him.
Yeah.
Like that. Maybe some more personal memories or
yeah.
But yeah, just lines like that tell you so much without saying actually a great deal.
Yeah.
Which I think is the sort of the genius of the script here.
I think so, and it's you've got to pay attention to the dialogue in this movie because it reveals so much about the characters. Mm-hmm. There's another, if we're talking about the dialogue, there's another thing that he keeps saying where someone says, "Are you okay?" He says, "Yeah, I'm fine. If you see me wrestling an alligator, help the alligator." He goes, "That's something my dad used to say." Apparently, so he doesn't know. He's just, it's a very subtle thing, and that comes up again actually in when he's having a parent-teacher meeting, he begins to say it, and then he stops himself and he says, "Never mind."
I didn't catch that, actually. Yeah. That's clever.
I noticed that the second time watching it for the podcast this week.
But yeah, the intro is so impressive to me because it's just a complete one-man show.
Yeah.
And there's no I don't know why they didn't play Thunder Road. I mean, I guess that's either part of the joke or they couldn't afford the rights to the song, because I imagine licensing Bruce Springsteen is probably not cheap.
Well, when he made the short, they shot it with the song.
Right.
I don't remember the short. I haven't watched it for the show. I probably should have, but I didn't, so fucking deal with it. He shot the short. He used the Springsteen song.
Mm-hmm.
And then it won Sundance, and he was like, shit, I'm going to have to start distributing this. I need to get the permission.
Oh, shit.
So
okay.
he'd written to Bruce Springsteen. He loved the short. And was like, look, send me $1,000.
Oh,
and
he got the boss's approval.
Yeah.
Amazing.
But they use an instrumental version, don't they, at the end of the feature?
No, it's a Bon Iver song,
Is
Skinny
it?
Love. Love that song.
Oh, is it Skinny Love?
Yeah.
Right, okay.
But yeah, I don't know if that was a rights thing, but it's a beautiful piece of music.
Yeah.
Fit it really nicely.
It did work really well in that final scene, which I'm sure we'll get to.
Yes, definitely. But yeah, the opening is just him talking. Like, there's a couple of very minor interactions with other people, but otherwise it's just him. Yeah. There's no music, as we said. Music exists in films generally to like guide your emotions, to tell you how to feel at any given moment. And we just don't have that. It's just a monologue. I don't know if anybody who didn't also have directorial experience could have pulled that off quite as well.
I think you're right in this case for sure, because he just knew where to stand, he knew where to look, he knew where the camera was. Mm-hmm. He kind of talks about it like he's kind of self-directing in the moment and self-editing, but because he knows the dialogue so well, it's just a muscle memory to him. He's able to think about all of those things because he's just kind of on autopilot, which is fascinating. Apparently he spent 2 months on his drive to work, 45-minute drive to work, so he could rehearse the whole thing 3 times on the way to work. God. And he's crying in traffic and everything, and getting some crazy looks from people. But yeah, it's interesting because I guess it must be really hard to act and direct a movie. How do you direct yourself?
Well, it's really weird that we're doing this in the same week that we've also watched Man of Tai Chi. Because Keanu Reeves could learn a thing or two about self-directing.
I love Keanu Reeves.
Same. But he was so bad in that film.
I liked the movie. I thought the movie was pretty excellent.
Yeah, it was a fun film.
He was quite funny in that film, and I don't think it was intentional.
Oh no, it was like a Tommy Wiseau level of funny.
Yeah.
Bless him. We stan Keanu though.
We do. We love Keanu.
Yeah.
Who doesn't love Keanu? If you don't like Keanu, I think maybe we should put you in some kind of big pit of fire.
A big pit of fire. That's very medieval.
Because you're clearly a psychopath, right? if you've got a problem with Keanu Reeves, then I don't know, maybe get yourself tested for something.
It's a pretty good gauge of how decent a person is going to be.
Yeah, I think so.
If you've got beef with Keanu, then you can get bent.
Yeah.
There are a lot of little things in the movie that I'm not sure I caught correctly, or like blink and you'll miss it bits.
Okay.
So I'm interested to know how much of it is likely to have been intentional or meaningful or whatever. He talks about his alma mater, like LSU, which I looked up is Louisiana State University.
Yeah.
Now you told me he's from New Orleans, right?
Yes.
So is that like somewhere that he went to study, or do you know?
What was the name of it?
Louisiana State University, LSU.
I don't know. I've got no idea where he studied, to be honest.
Because he mentions it on a couple of occasions during the film as well, so I wondered if that was like something personal.
I think he had intended to shoot it in New Orleans.
Okay, where was it actually shot?
Somewhere else.
Very specific, thank you.
Yeah, but no, I don't know. I don't know if that's his actual.
Okay, I'd be interested to know, like, because it just purely out of the fact that everything in this is so measured, is so, as you said, forensic. Like, I can't imagine it would have been included without a good reason. Yeah. So I'm curious.
Go Tigers.
Yeah. I want to know more. And stuff like, I don't know if I caught it correctly, but on the calendar, when he's obviously got custody of his daughter that week or whatever, it looked like his daughter's name was spelled 2 different ways, because he had her name on each day that he was looking after her.
Yeah.
And it looked like on one day it was Crystal with a K,
Right.
And I don't know if I imagined that.
Okay.
I meant to go back and check.
Right.
And I didn't have chance in the end.
Okay.
So I wondered if that was in fact correct. Was that like maybe something to indicate that he'd not been such a great father in the past and now he was trying to step up his game?
I don't know. It was definitely intentional, but I don't know what the meaning is behind it.
Yeah, just because it's kind of preceded by the scene of them when they're sort of doing the clapping game. I can't even remember what that's called. But patty cakes. Okay. Yeah, I mean, everybody used to do that as a kid, right? No? Women, girls used to do that as children.
Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, obviously you get that where he keeps kind of faltering and getting frustrated with himself and he keeps saying, I'm not going to be any good at this. And then obviously you have the scene following that where he's clearly like been up all night practicing.
Yeah.
So he's obviously trying to like step up and be a better dad.
Yeah.
And there's a few occasions with stuff like that. And I just really appreciated it. Like, again, it tells you so much about the character. He's so desperate to be a good person and be the person that other people need him to be. Yeah,
it's interesting because you mentioned that, and I think you get some clues throughout the movie about one of the reasons that his marriage had broken up, and I think it's because he spent a lot of time at work, essentially.
Right, okay. Oh, yeah, because they talk about him being like a decorated police officer. He's obviously quite good at his job.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Until he's not.
Yeah. So maybe he wasn't that present with Crystal. I mean, spelling the name wrong seems a bit much. But
I'm not going to double down on that.
Yeah. No, listen,
you must have seen it.
You must have seen it, and there must be a reason for it. It's just trying to figure out what that reason is.
Mm-hmm.
He definitely is trying to be a better father because, as you say, he stays up half the night trying to learn the patty cake thing. And she gets up in the morning and they do it, and she's very impressed that he can do it very quickly. So that, that kind of worked.
The little girl was great as well, actually.
Yeah, she was very good, actually. She wasn't in it an awful lot, but she had a couple of really important scenes, that being one of them, and then towards the end of the movie as well. But yeah, she was excellent.
I'm always dubious about child actors because some of them, I mean, I'm not going to be harsh, like they're children.
Yeah.
But there's a huge kind of diversity in terms of acting ability, shall we say.
Yeah, most kids are shit at acting.
Yeah, I was trying to be far more diplomatic.
Yeah. Well, I think it depends what they're doing, really. Like, if you just say to them, just pretend you're playing or whatever. I know nothing about kids. I don't even know why I'm talking about this. I know nothing about children.
But
they just mostly seem like shit actors.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was trying to say, but with more flowery words, I suppose.
Snowflake.
But it's the saying, isn't it? Like, never work with children or animals.
Yeah.
This is going to sound like a dig, and I don't intend it to be, but in a lot of films that have maybe a similar budget to this kind of thing, your expectations are maybe a little bit lower in terms of what the acting threshold is going to be, right? Would you agree, or?
I don't think I've ever had that thought, no.
Okay.
I don't think I've ever thought, this is low budget, I bet it's going to be shit acting.
Maybe it's because I've been so immersed in the horror genre for such a long time, because that is definitely the one genre where the lower the budget, the worse everything is going to be.
Yeah.
Largely, not always, but I've seen some shocking stuff. I mean, everything that Charles Band has ever done, for example, very low budget. He's very passionate about his craft, but very low budget, and the acting is a little bit wonky, shall we say. So my expectations were not tremendously high, knowing the budget, not knowing anything about anybody involved at the time, the first time I saw this anyway. So my expectations were kind of blown away. They were shot apart. It was incredible. Everybody in this film was so good.
And it probably is a result of...
I mean, it's good directing. Good directing,
but also just rehearsal after rehearsal, I imagine. I mean, certainly Jim Cummings works that way, and I imagine that he probably...
I did read that he recorded the entire script where he was doing different voices for all of the characters, and he sent that to everybody so they could kind of get a grasp on the sort of delivery he wanted, but put their own stamp on it.
Yeah, and that's kind of how he writes his films as well. He speaks the dialogue. If it's good, he writes it down.
Okay.
And then, as
That's
you say, he
interesting.
records the entire script on a Zoom
Okay.
in a cupboard and sends it out to actors and anyone that's involved in the film so they can hear the specific tone and cadence of the way he wants them to deliver things.
Okay.
So it's what he says is that on a
So
you
what
know,
you're
you can
saying
send.
is he's a bit of a control freak.
Well,
I joke.
listen, it's his baby. He wants it how he wants it. And what he says is that he sends it. He sees a script, this big white document with words on, but it's got no context.
Yeah.
Right. Obviously, you can write things in there like, I don't know, I've never written a script, but you can put things in there to clue you into how the characters are feeling or what's going on, or insert a song name or whatever.
Yeah.
But if you do the actual podcast, like I say, you can do the tone of voice, you can do the delivery, whether it's softly spoken or shouted, which he does quite a lot of in this movie, a lot of ranting. So the podcast, recording it as a podcast seems to work really well, and I think he does it on all of his stuff now. Obviously, since Thunder Road came out, we've had The Wolf of Snow Hollow and The Beta Test.
Yep.
All written, directed by Jim Cummings. And I think he just makes his movies that way now. I think that's just the way he works. And it seems to work, and it's
if it's effective, why not?
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely seem to work on this project. It's interesting you mentioned the other films. There's definitely a thread that ties all of his work together, isn't there? Like
toxic masculinity.
An element of toxic masculinity, yeah. Usually a man experiencing some sort of mental breakdown.
That is present in all three of those movies.
It's just a good man unraveling.
Yes, that's the thing, isn't it? Because they're all essentially good men to a varying
with the exception of
degrees.
the Beta Test, perhaps.
Yes, I knew he was going to say that, and I agree with you. He's definitely the most arsehole of those three characters. But I still feel like he started somewhere that was in a good place and maybe got corrupted by the system.
Industry.
We're not here to talk about the Beta Test. I
I
do
know.
have it on pre-order, so we'll be watching it.
Oh, that beautiful Arrow
Oh
release.
my God,
I
it's
can't
so
wait.
gorgeous. Yeah. If you're a fan of the Beta Test, they have a very nice release on Arrow at the moment, but I imagine it's probably going to sell out pretty soon, so get hold of it quick. Actually, by the time this episode goes out, it's probably sold out. So
Oh no, you just teased everyone.
You can borrow mine. No, you can't. Yes, so you're right. There is certainly a thread that carries through all of his films.
Oh no, but that's not a criticism by any means.
Not at all. It works.
But it's obviously something that he enjoys exploring. Yeah.
And I think you can take a toxic, and I think it's quite relevant at the moment as well. I guess it's always been relevant, but particularly with the Beta Test, it's talking about some stuff that's been heavily publicized in the last few years. And I think just that toxic masculinity character is a good central focus point for a script, because you can do offshoots and go various directions with that. But that one thing is so interesting. It's so pathetic, tragic, and funny. It's kind
there's
of
a lot
writes
to
itself
mine
in
for
the
comedy
way.
there, yeah. And there's that great line in The Wolf of Snow Hollow as well, where he sort of turns to his female colleague and says, "Oh, do you think women have had to put up with this since the Dark Ages?" And she's just like,
she just looks
for
at
fuck's
Yeah.
sake.
Yeah.
Now you're catching up.
Yeah.
So he's obviously very clued into that sort of thing.
Yeah, I think so. Themes in Thunder Road.
Mm-hmm.
What do we reckon? We've got
themes?
Toxic masculinity.
Therapy is good.
Therapy is good. Yeah, grief.
That could be an alternative title for this movie.
Yeah.
Get therapy.
Yes, absolutely. But that probably is a really good way of putting it, actually, because he's always saying to people he's fine, fine, and he's not fine.
Oh, he's not fine, no.
but Tolkien never solved anyone's problems ever, as he says in the film. But grief. I feel like he's exploring grief in this quite a lot, generational trauma.
Well, and in Wolf of Snow Hollow as well.
Yes,
he's always losing a parent.
Yeah. But, you've got the generational stuff because he's lost his mum. He didn't have a relationship with his dad. I don't know what his relationship was like with his mum. I gather that it wasn't brilliant, because he talks about having given her shit when he was growing up. When he visits his sister later on in the movie, she explains that she feels like the mother never approved of her.
Yeah,
so
that he was the favourite, perhaps.
Yeah, so there's definitely, like, it's not a perfect relationship, and there's definitely some trauma that's been passed down to him. And I think the key of the film is him learning or trying not to pass his trauma down to Crystal. And I think that's why I really like the way that the movie ends. It's kind of a full circle thing going on with the mother dying, and then at the end of the movie we've got Crystal at the ballet, which we'll get to, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
I don't want to jump too far ahead.
Yeah. Did you notice in a lot of scenes, I'm struggling to think of a specific one right now. I think there's one where maybe his daughter's sat at the table and he's in the kitchen talking. But in a lot of scenes like that, where he's interacting with other people, he's often the one in the background, sometimes out of focus. And it's the person that he's interacting with that's often the focus of the frame.
Yeah.
What do you think that is?
I don't know. Maybe the camera just lost focus.
In a film this carefully
it's obviously,
I don't believe that for a second.
I mean, honestly, if I'm just going to simplify it, it's probably just we need to be focusing on his character. He's still there, don't worry. He's still in the background. You can kind of make him out.
It's just unusual. It's an unusual technique. Yeah, because usually the person who's talking is the one who's in focus, and that's not always the case here.
Right, okay.
So I just found that quite interesting. It struck me as unusual.
It's not something I noticed, actually.
Okay.
Didn't notice that.
I only noticed it on second watch.
Yeah.
There's a lot of really interesting edits as well that work brilliantly in terms of keeping the kind of bittersweet tone going.
Yeah.
And the one that really stuck out to me is I think he's almost intruding on his colleague's family dinner.
Yeah.
Like the rest of the family all seem mildly confused as to why he's there.
I think that's because Nate is always inviting him
for
dinner, and he never takes him up on it.
Right,
so they're probably just quite taken and surprised that he's there.
Yeah. And he's sort of trying to ingratiate himself and ask about events that he might be able to join them on and stuff like that.
Is there some kind of website for this stuff? Because I don't know, I always seem to miss it, and it'd be really nice to get involved.
Facebook, my dude.
Yeah.
That's what that's for.
It's up in the cloud. What cloud?
He always seems to play characters that are older as well.
Yeah.
He ages himself up a little bit.
Yeah. I think just it's like a technophobe kind of character, yeah.
Like my 8-year-old dad can use a smartphone. What's his excuse? But again, I don't know, maybe that's another indication of how buried he's been in his job.
Yeah.
That he's ignored everything, like he's been so blinkered.
I think you're probably right there. That's interesting. I like that theory.
And it's only when, well, we'll talk about that in a second, but it's only when his job is sort of removed from him that he sort of looks to fill his life with other things. Yeah,
you're right. I think probably being a police officer has become his identity. It cost him his marriage.
Yeah.
Potentially could have cost him his relationship with his daughter. Mm-hmm. There's an interesting scene, and I wondered what it meant. And when I rewatched it again yesterday, I think my thought is this. So there's a scene when Nate and Jim they get called to an emergency, and there's a chef with a knife. Oh, I was
just about to talk about this.
Were
scene.
You?
Yeah,
perfect.
Because the edit that I was talking about, there's a hard cut from that family dinner to a very serious, fatal situation in the diner, which is just complete tonal shift.
Yeah.
But my God, does it work?
Yeah.
But it's weird because this film is not by any means like an adrenaline rush of any kind, but it shook me. I hate to keep using the same term, but it is so disarming.
Yeah.
So go on. What were you
it keeps you on your toes,
scene?
and it's kind of jarring, but in the best way.
Jarring's a good word, yeah.
Like you just get settled into a scene, and then you get thrust into this. Whether there's a foot chase moment that happens, kind of like that as well. But yeah. So when they get called to this restaurant, and there's a maniac with a knife, and you see probably his best police work in the movie.
Well, he's clearly a competent officer.
Yeah. But that's the only evidence that you get, that you see of him being a good policeman. But he's kind of saying to the guy, disarm yourself, throw the knife away, and he goes to the back to try and find this guy because he's stopped talking, and it turns out that the guy has fallen on his own knife.
I couldn't work out if he'd fallen on his knife or if it was like intentional because he felt boxed in.
I feel like it was an accident.
Right, okay.
I feel like because it doesn't necessarily. That's the thing about this film. It doesn't spoon feed you anything.
Oh God,
You've
no.
got to work really hard and pay really close attention to everything.
I appreciate that though. It makes me feel respected as an audience member.
Absolutely. And also it's interpretation. So like just because one thing about this scene doesn't necessarily mean that it's correct, but I feel like from that scene he sees the guy accidentally stab himself, and he kind of sees himself in that moment because he looks at him and the camera stays with him for a good 10-20 seconds just looking at this guy, and I feel like in that moment he's going, oh, that's me. I'm if I don't do something soon, I'm going to metaphorically stab myself in the chest.
Have a breakdown and start wielding a knife.
Yeah, whether it's having a breakdown or whether it's just or something more serious, car accident or whatever, because he is losing it in this movie. And he does. He ends up getting fired from the force by doing some reckless stuff in the parking lot. But you can see how he's gotten to that moment, and I just feel like from that restaurant scene, I feel like that's him acknowledging that he probably needs to do something. Not that he acts on it immediately, because he doesn't, but it's kind of true of life though, isn't it? Like you think, oh, I need to work on this thing. You don't necessarily start working on it straight away, but it's in there and you know that you need to work on it at some point. That's what I think that scene was about.
Okay. I didn't think quite as intently about that scene as you did. I like that take a lot though. I just saw it more on face value, I suppose. Like he was just sort of slowly being broken down by having to witness all of these atrocities. Like, I mean, obviously we've covered a pretty wide array of cops this season.
We have,
but very few of them have been sort of serious in nature and have, concentrated on actual good people and competent police officers.
Yeah.
And I think it's sort of important to note what they must go through.
Yeah.
I guess End of Watch is the closest comparison to show you the sort of really traumatic stuff that they must have to deal with on occasion. Yeah. Maybe not daily, but
very often,
the kind of things that they have to witness and be involved in.
Yeah.
And I saw it more as just him kind of reaching his breaking point incrementally.
Yeah.
Like it's just another traumatic thing he's had to witness and live through.
I think, you're probably right. I think that...
Well, both interpretations... both interpretations can be true.
Absolutely, yeah. He does mention that later on when he's having a rant in the car park. I saw a man fall on his own knife this week. I don't need that. So, you're reading of it just being a difficult job, and these things kind of pile up on you. And if you're not careful, can push you, can nudge you down a dark path. Yeah, for sure.
I mean, a completely separate note, but one of my good friends is a social worker.
Yeah.
And she's been on the job for longer than is recommended, because the standard is that you're not supposed to do that you're not supposed to work on the front lines effectively for more than a few years, because it can damage you so much.
So traumatic.
Yeah. So, I mean, it is like a proven thing. And I wonder if the same is true of police work.
Yeah. Like
maybe they recommend that you don't do it for too long, because it must
take its toll.
It's going to have one of two outcomes, right? You're going to be completely deadened to everything.
Yeah.
Or you're going to have a breakdown.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Like mental health for police officers is probably an area that they should really concentrate on, right? Having said that, I don't know. Maybe they do. Maybe. I would be surprised, though.
When people say defund the police, perhaps it should be fund their mental health more than anything else.
Yeah, I think it would do us all a favour.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So he's kind of... He gets served some court papers at one point, and Roz is trying to get sole custody of Crystal with her partner Chris. So that kind of sets off him having to hire a lawyer. He has to sell the dance studio to pay for his legal services, and he has a meeting with the judge to try or who's determining basically where Crystal is going to live, right?
Yeah, and sadly the judge sees the footage of the funeral, which, terrible pun aside, is kind of the nail in his coffin for the custody battle.
Yes.
Or the first stage of the custody battle anyway.
Yeah. He doesn't do himself any favours in that scene. He kind of
but he's trying though. It's so sad.
He starts off well, and the lawyer warns him, this judge is an arsehole, don't say anything you don't need to. And then he just starts talking. You're like, no, shut up, shut up. And as you say, the judge brings up the video, and he says, you're acting violent. And he says, no, I wasn't acting violent. I wasn't acting violent.
Yeah, which is true. Yeah, he wasn't violent at all. But obviously, the partner of Roz is trying to sway the court's decision. Yeah, it's basically trying to perform a character assassination.
Yeah.
We don't get to know very much about Chris.
No, you see him a couple of times. There's that one time which makes me die when he goes to try and talk to Jim about custody, and Jim just winds up just presses the window button, and the window goes up, and then the camera pans back to Jim, and he just puts something in his mouth, and he's eating it. He's just staring at Chris through the window. It's fucking genius. I love this movie.
I appreciate the level of petty on display in this film.
Yeah. But yeah, he accidentally threatens the judge, and Kelsey Priest, they rule in favour of Roz.
Yeah.
That sets him. That's really the breaking point for him, isn't it? Like all of the events in the movie have led him to this point, but the point at which the judge says, "No, you can't see your daughter anymore."
Yeah.
That's when he
goes. Is that the all is lost moment?
That is the all is lost moment. Yes, well done, Sophie. That's when he drives back to the police station, and he kind of offers out Nate. Yeah. He's like, I thought you got rid of the footage. And then they have a bit of a scuffle, and he has that big monologue and rant in
I think that's my favourite scene in the entire film, because that clever sort of pan out when you see everybody else's reactions and you don't know what's happened.
Yeah.
And that kind of cuts to the wide shot to reveal that he'd drawn his gun.
Yeah.
That, the first time I watched that, in a kind of unassuming indie film, I wasn't expecting such a jaw-dropping moment.
Yeah, it was dealing with some serious stuff in this movie.
Yeah,
but like because like you say, it kind of the camera zooms out and it reveals him holding
so
the gun.
Clever.
But then he looks down at it's very subtle, because he kind of side looks, and he's like, oh, shit.
Yeah.
And then he goes, it's fine, puts his gun away, and and then you're immediately laughing. You're going, shit, this is getting serious. But then 10 seconds later, you're laughing your ass off.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's I was going to ask you your favourite scenes. I think that's one of mine.
That's top for me. Yeah. I love that.
It's really
so well done.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is just the sycophantic Jim Cummings podcast from now on.
Yeah. We're going to have to do beta test at some point.
We'll fit that into a theme.
Yeah.
For sure. We didn't talk about surprise, Macon Blair.
Macon Blair. Oh, yes, of course. The reach around guy.
Yeah. As he will now henceforth be known.
Yeah, that's a really great scene as well. I would struggle to pick my favourite scene from this movie. I've got like 5 that are joint favourite, I think.
Jostling for top position.
Yeah, and this is one of them. It's the parent-teacher meeting when he
goes to yeet the desk.
Yeah, that's right. They're having a discussion about, obviously, Crystal and her performance at school, and the teacher enlightens Jim in that she's having difficulties reading. She's become a bit of a problem child, but also she has some learning difficulties. She can't really read. And Jim's really disappointed because he has...
he feels like he's failed her.
He's dyslexic himself.
Yeah.
He feels like he's failed her. And he like you say, he stands up, he picks up the desk and he goes, I'm going to hum this across the classroom. And the teacher goes, I'd rather you didn't, that's Crystal's desk. And then there's about a minute of him just coming back and sitting down and stroking the desk. And then he very slowly looks up and smiles at the teacher and then just continues. And then Macon Blair very subtly picks up the scissors from the desk, puts them in his pocket. Just jokes everywhere in this film. I love it.
I was very happy to see Macon Blair, if that is how you pronounce his name.
Is he a Blue Ruin?
He is. I fucking love that film.
Is he a Green Room?
Yes.
Right, so it's a bit of a Saulnier.
He works with Jeremy Saulnier, has worked with him quite a few times. Murder Party as well, I believe.
Okay.
And I enjoy Jeremy Saulnier's movies a lot, and I enjoy what I've seen from Macon Blair as well, because obviously he directed I Don't Feel at Home in This World Anymore, which I absolutely adored and does not get enough love. Yeah. Melanie Linsky and Elijah Wood, Dreamcast.
Yeah.
And they're back in Yellow Jackets again, and I couldn't be happier.
Together again.
Yeah. So yeah, just the notion that they all might be friends makes me very happy.
Is he a Nazi in Green Room?
Yes.
He's the good Nazi?
He's
if you can say such a thing. Maybe let's cut this bit out.
Yeah.
No, it's fine.
He's like Patrick Stewart's kind of right-hand man, isn't he?
Yeah, but he kind of is...
He's having doubts.
A sympathetic Nazi.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's having a crisis of conscience.
Moral grey area, shall
or
we
maybe
say.
all this Nazi stuff is not good. Oh, do you think?
Historically.
Do you think so?
It's been not great, shall we say?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I don't know. I enjoy seeing him. I do love Blue Ruin. I think his performance in that was fucking excellent.
Yeah.
So it's always a pleasure to see him crop up. And I'd forgotten he was in it, actually, until this watch.
He was very good in this. I wonder how that casting kind of happened.
That's
perhaps
it.
Perhaps they're pals. I know Jim had said that the guy that plays Nate is one of Jim's friends.
Okay.
And he had kind of called him and Jim, called him, "What are you doing now?" And he said, "I'm just returning a t-shirt at Target." And he says, "No, keep the t-shirt and come and fly out because we're shooting a movie." So he kind of works with his pals, I think, quite a lot.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Obviously, it works well.
Yeah. Apparently Nicolas Cage loves Thunder Road.
I read that too.
Loves it, and he really believes that Jim Cummings is one of the best actors and writers of all time already. And I think they're trying to get something going. I think that because obviously Pig is Nicolas Cage's, in his own words, it's his favourite movie that he's ever done.
I loved Pig. Pig
broke
me.
Yeah, fantastic movie. So unexpected as well.
Yeah.
And I just, maybe pre-Pig, I might not have been up for it, but post-Pig, I think post-Pig.
We're in a post-Pig world.
We're in a post-Pig, reality. I think Nicolas Cage and Jim Cummings could do something really interesting together.
I mean, Nicolas Cage is such a talented actor, but he, for a while at least, became a bit of a joke, a bit of a parody of himself. Yeah. And I think it's a joke that he absolutely leans into, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
He's great. I mean, we saw Renfield recently. He's great at that sort of larger-than-life kind of camp performance, but he's so good when it's like really pared back in something like Pig. He's such a good, serious actor as well.
I genuinely think he's one of the greatest of all time.
Yeah, I agree.
He has done some really terrible films, but I think that was...
He seems to just do what he enjoys, and I fully respect that.
There was that period where I think you had the tax bill thing. And he had to he had to pay that. So I think he did a bunch of like Left Behind, which that Christian airplane movie, whatever that's about. Langoliers adjacent or whatever. Maybe Ray Liotta's in that movie as a serial killer or something. Infinitely more interesting, probably what that movie was. I never saw it. Saw the ratings, looked shit. There was a bunch of stuff.
That was a journey.
He did a bunch of those movies, but I feel like in the last 3-4 years, maybe
I think Mandy was probably the real turnaround.
I think he's paid his tax bill, and now he's doing the things.
Now he's doing passion projects.
Yeah, Mandy's in his top 5 favourites. He loves Pig. He loves Mandy. Film. Yeah, he does some really interesting stuff now. And like you say, in Renfield, that was a perfect.
He was great.
Perfect comedy performance. Yeah, he was great. Or maybe Jim Cummings could have played the Ben Schwartz role in that film. I thought Ben Schwartz was great, and I wouldn't want to swap him out in Renfield. But I also would go and see the Jim Cummings version of that as well.
I don't know. Maybe there's an alternate reality where that superior version exists.
Almost certainly, yeah. Multiverse.
Yeah.
Multiverse Renfield. Yes.
I would pay good money to see that pairing.
Yeah, I think it's coming. I think they're kind of pals now, so I would imagine that they'll work together at some point, and I'm super excited.
Yeah, that makes me happy.
Yeah, and if you do make that movie and you need a production accountant, I am available in the UK or anywhere else. I'm very cheap.
We'll work for vegan KFC burgers.
I can't pretend that I'm good, but I'm cheap.
You've got a calculator. What more do you need?
Exactly, that's all you need.
How do you feel about the music in this film?
I thought the music, I think it's very subtle, because I know when we were watching the movie, I think you mentioned to me that you hadn't noticed any music.
The standard in most films is to have some kind of incidental music over a lot of the proceedings, especially those without much dialogue. But because this is so dialogue heavy, I don't think it necessarily needs or suffers from a lack of music, but the score is there.
Yes.
and it's very kind of melancholic, and it made me feel weird about laughing so much.
Okay. Yeah, do you know what? There are a few things in this film when you kind of feel, should I be laughing at this?
Yeah.
Yes, because it's funny is my answer. But yeah, you're right. There is a score.
Mm-hmm.
It's very subtle and it's very mood driven.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of it, but I really like it. I think it's, it's
I
not.
think it was a good move to use it sparingly.
Absolutely.
It doesn't need it.
It's not, a Hans Zimmer or Ludwig Göransson or Junkie XL that I'm going to put on and listen to when I'm going for a run or something. But it's very fitting within the movie. It just kind of just slightly guides you. Like mostly it's the dialogue and that helps you figure out what everyone's motivations are and what the story is, but it does a little bit, like there's a foot chase where it has some subtle music going on in the background, and I like it, but do you know what, I didn't notice it a great deal until you pointed it out to me. I started listening for it, but I kind of think that's how the music should be, right? Outside of like a blockbuster, a film like this, you probably shouldn't really notice the music too much. It should kind of work.
Well, that's a good sign. Yeah, it's a good sign that it works sort of harmoniously with the rest of the moving parts. Yeah, I suppose.
Yeah, and obviously, Jim did the.
Don't tell me he did the music as well. Fuck off. Yeah,
and he actually did catering as well. At the end of every night, he would cook all of the food for the next day in big old tubs of. I'm lying about that bit. He did
you had me going for a second. I'm not going to lie.
Well, he did everything else. Might as well.
It would not surprise me.
Why fucking stop there?
I feel like such an underachiever right now. It's making me question every life choice I've made. Yeah.
That's one of the things that I really like about this guy is that he'll go on podcasts and he'll talk to people about, anyone can do this stuff. He was a producer. He wasn't. He went and studied, and he was a producer for 6 years. So he did have a baseline knowledge that not everyone has access to. Yeah. However, what he did after that, kind of anyone can do.
So you're telling me he's also humble?
Yeah, he is. Yeah, I'm afraid to say.
God damn.
Yeah.
Is he your favourite person working in the industry right now?
I think he might be.
Yeah.
Now that Arnie's not doing much anymore.
It's funny. I'd never heard of Jim Cummings until. I can't remember what we watched, but it was sort of not long after we'd met.
Yeah.
And we were talking about movies and things that we enjoyed, and I expressed my love for like very bittersweet kind of tragi-comic films. Yeah. And you were just like, "Oh, have you seen Thunder Road? You'd love it." Yeah. I was like, "Thunder what now?"
Yeah.
And we watched it together, and I wouldn't say I was like blown away, but it made me very curious about his other work.
Yeah.
And obviously we got hold of the other films as well. And
you're a big fan.
3 for 3.
Yeah, they're all excellent movies. I think currently Thunder Road is still my favourite.
I got a lot more out of it this time, I'll be honest. Yeah.
It's interesting because I really loved it the first time I saw it, but I wasn't thinking about it. I wasn't analysing it. I just enjoyed it. Yeah. It was a perfect movie. Yeah, I think Thunder Road is my favourite. The beta test is quite close, I think. I'd have to give it a few more viewings, and then
we've only seen that the once, haven't we?
Yeah, and The Wolf of Snow Hollow, excellent, but it's my third favourite Jim Cummings movie.
It's funny because my instinct is to put that at number 1, but that's just because, again, my love for the horror genre. Yeah. So I feel like I'm a little bit biased in that. And Robert Forster was excellent in that as well. But I don't know, having thought about it a bit more, I find it very difficult to actually put his films in a tier list because there's not a lot to dislike about any of them.
They're all excellent movies.
Yeah.
They are. I think my ratings tend to come from rewatches more than anything. Yeah. Like if I have 5 star something,
rewatch value.
I can watch it a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, Thunder Road is quickly becoming a 5-star movie for me. But beta test, I can see that creeping up and up and up as well. I feel like I'm going to get... I loved it first time I saw it. Very, very funny and relevant. But I just feel like there's probably going to be a lot more that I get from it the second time round.
Yeah, his films do seem quite dense.
Yes, absolutely.
And because they are quite dialogue heavy, they're sort of littered with insights and jokes and there's a lot going on.
Exactly right, yeah. And you have to watch it a few times to get all of that stuff.
Yeah, I would agree. So kind of winding up Thunder Road towards the end then, it gets very tragic and there's a scene which kind of made me gasp and put my hand over my mouth. And that's the point at which we find out that Roz has, I presume, had an accidental overdose.
Do you know what? Another example of them not really telling you.
It's ambiguous.
You've got to think about it for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, because maybe she's had an overdose. Chris,
but he did, like, he's not very charitable in terms of his feelings towards her, but he does describe her as being a good mom.
Yeah.
I think during the court proceedings.
That's right.
So he obviously, I don't know, he doesn't seem like somebody who would have said that if it wasn't true.
Yeah.
So that's why I kind of maybe discerned that it was accidental.
Well, I'm not sure whether it was accidental or not. I don't think there's a clear answer. There is a piece of dialogue.
Well, it almost doesn't matter. It's kind of
it doesn't really matter. But when because obviously Crystal finds Roz and she calls it into the police department, and then that's when they pull over Jim, who's driving, and he has that. I've got to say this part because it's wonderful. He gets pulled over. And he says, I've not been drinking. Yeah. I've not been drinking. Why are you pulling me over? I haven't been drinking. And then he goes, where's your phone? We're trying to get in contact with you. And he said, what? I've been drinking. What?
Yeah.
And then he tries to smash the windscreen because he locks himself out of his car. And that is just brilliant. The way
apparently caught himself quite seriously doing that, and to this day has a scar on his hand.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I read, I can't remember where I read it, but apparently he was bleeding quite profusely, but just powered through and then super glued his wound together.
Oh my God.
Which is straight out of a horror film.
I thought that only happened in action movies.
Yeah. That or like duct tape.
Yeah.
They're the go-tos.
Yeah. But he gets alerted to this call that's been made by Crystal to the police, and unfortunately Roz is dead. So I guess he's kind of won that custody battle.
By default, yeah.
So it's a happy ending.
Yeah, ultimately.
Yeah, no, it's a tragic ending. It is.
But just the scene at which he's alone with her body.
Yeah.
And just that moment where he kind of has this, heart-wrenching moment, but then stands up and slaps her corpse.
Yeah.
Well, that did me in.
He kisses her hand and says,
so there's this really tender moment.
This is from me and Crystal.
Yeah.
And he gets up and says, this is from my mother and Crystal's future husband. And he slaps her. And you're like,
what the fuck?
Like, because there's so much going on through my head watching that. Like, okay, so you're slapping a woman, but she's dead. It's a corpse.
Is that worse? Or
I've never seen this before in that film.
Yeah.
It's definitely not worse because she's dead, but I still don't feel comfortable about it.
Yeah.
So why am I laughing?
Right? It's such an emotional roller coaster.
All of those things are going on in the space of like 5 seconds.
Yeah.
It's fucking genius.
It's brilliant.
It's so well done. Yeah.
But it did make me gasp.
Yeah.
The first time I saw that, I was just like, what the fuck?
Every time I think I put my hands over my eyes, I'm like, oh my God, you can't do this.
But at the same time, you feel like how cathartic that must have been for the character.
Yeah.
Because he did have a lot of, quite rightly, it seems, had a lot of resentment towards her. So that moment sort of was him kind of shutting the door on that relationship.
I think so. Well, I think there was, it probably was quite a troubled relationship. There's the point where, earlier on in the film, where Nate is comforting Jim when he goes to his house and they have the bonding moment in the garden. There's the part where Jim says, there was a time where Roz had texted me, should we make out? But she was away on business, staying in a hotel.
Yeah.
So he called her out on it and said, are you cheating on me? And he said that he had to spend the next week in a hotel. So I gather there was a lot of that sort of stuff going on, and a long period of misery, I imagine.
Mm-hmm.
And as you say, probably went a long way to creating that resentment. And that's why he's telling her things like, I hope you don't get hit by a fucking train, and bibbing at her, because he fucking hates her.
Yeah.
And she's, they've obviously...
There's no love lost there at all.
Yeah. And they split up, and now she's done the worst thing and left her daughter.
Yeah, and as we were talking about generational trauma earlier, like she's passed that on to her kid now. Yeah. That's awful.
Absolutely.
It's like the worst thing you can do.
When he, after that scene, he goes and speaks to Crystal, and they have their heart to heart towards at the very end of the film, he kind of explains to her, when someone leaves, and then he stops and he thinks and he says, when someone chooses to leave.
Yeah.
So I think maybe it could have been a suicide. But it could have just been an overdose gone wrong as well. Chris, the partner, is also missing. So, I mean, that doesn't get resolved. We don't know what's happened there.
I respect that, though.
Yeah.
Like,
it's not important.
A lesser filmmaker would have tied up all of those loose ends, but it's not necessary.
That's not what the movie is about. The movie is about
his journey.
Jim's character and his relationship with his daughter.
Yeah.
And trying to reconcile his relationship with his mother and trying to be a better father for his daughter.
So how do you feel about that ending, then?
Oh, it's perfect. Can I be honest with you here?
I would appreciate it, yeah.
Okay. So we watched this movie together.
We did.
We've seen this twice together now.
Yeah.
When you were out yesterday, I finished off watching this film.
Did you do a cry?
I did a cry.
Oh, I knew
because I was on my own and I was safe. I was in a safe space on my own. Not that you would criticise me for crying,
God, no.
but I'm just very uncomfortable about showing my emotions to people, as you know. And I think that might be a big reason why I empathise with this character and this film so much. It's why it kind of speaks to me so much, I think, because I see a lot of myself in the character.
Whereas, on the other hand, I never stop crying.
Yeah, right. But I just think the ending is absolutely perfect.
Yeah.
Because
it's brief, but it's everything it needs to be.
You have the scene where he's talking to Crystal in the ambulance and he says, do you want to run away together? And then clearly some time has passed because there's a Christmas tree up, and what better way to tell people that time has passed? It's Christmas now. But yeah, so, and then it cuts to them going to a ballet. And earlier on when he was speaking to his sister had said, oh, Mum went to see Swan Lake and I think that's what made her want to be a dancer. So, and given that the film starts with his mum's funeral and ends with them at the ballet, and Crystal is watching
starts
the ballet.
And ends with dancing.
Yeah.
Of vastly varying degrees of quality.
Yeah. Crystal and Jim are watching the ballet together, and Crystal leans forward and she's super interested.
Engrossed.
And Jim kind of side looks at her and he's like, shh.
Yeah.
Like, and then it clicks with him. He's like, oh, she likes this. Like, she's going to be passionate about dancing. And he just looks at her and just starts crying. And it's
I love that
a bit emotional talking about. This is not like me at all.
It's the only point during the film where he experiences an emotion and doesn't try to suppress it. The only time.
Yeah.
And I love that.
Hadn't thought of that. That's super interesting. Yeah, you're right.
He just lets it happen.
Because every other time he gets really emotional and then his face just changes.
Yeah, complete straight face.
Yeah, and it's like, no, I'm fine. Don't worry. Yeah, you're right. He just goes with it. And that's his character arc, isn't it? Perfect.
Therapy is good.
Yeah. Clearly he's had some therapy as well.
You would hope.
Yeah. No, he does say to Crystal, we're going to feel bad for a long time.
Yeah.
We're probably going to have to talk to some people, but before you know it, it'll be back to normal. Oh, I like this movie a lot.
I can tell.
It's such a good movie. So I fancy watching it again.
Right. Well, that's us done for Thunder Road. We're going to go watch it again immediately now. I had a blast talking about that. I'm glad we chose to include this one. It's very different to any of the other cop movies we've talked about.
It's not like Police Academy 4, is it? It's worlds away from that.
I would say it's worlds away from any of the Police Academy movies.
Yeah. We've not really done a movie like this, but we've done a wide selection of.
We've tried,
films.
Yeah. Would you say this is easily your favourite so far this season?
It's difficult. I've got some of my all-time favourites, or one of my all-time favourites in here. Yeah, I would say this is my favourite.
Okay.
Yeah.
So far, this is like neck and neck with The Guard for me.
Yeah, okay. So, next week is our last one for this season.
It is
season 1.
Season end.
Finale.
Yes.
What are we doing for that?
We are talking about, I'm so excited, we're talking about The Raid.
Oh, we're doing The Raid! Finally!
I know. We've never seen that together.
I know, it's nuts, isn't it?
That's wild.
Yeah.
Because that's now cracked. Oh, this is such a spoiler. Yeah. But it's now cracked my top 10 of all time.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I'm sure we'll talk about that.
Oh, yeah.
During the show.
But until then.
Thanks so much for listening. If you've enjoyed the show, please consider leaving us a 5-star review on your platform of choice and come and shoot the shit with us on social media. All the links are in the description.